Hey, what's going on, good people? So last weekend my girlfriend and I went apple picking, which means I have a ridiculous amount of apples and I need to get through all of these. So we're going to make a few dishes that, well, involve apple. And that's one of the beautiful things of cooking with food when it is in season, which is it just gives you a really excuse to just say, hey, what can I do with this? What are some unique, fun ideas? So over the next couple days, I'm going to be recording a few videos that I'm going to release over the next few weeks. But not only that, I'm going to try to do it where at least 3 of these videos can be combined into make an easy to follow 3-course meal that you can make yourself, where all you have to do is follow the prep steps and then have all that prep set away in your fridge. Then you can fire one dish after another and it'll be wicked easy to put together a meal that feels fancy as hell. Today we're going to start off with an apple and fennel soup. And the next video is going to be a pork belly dish with an apple and miso puree. Both of these are going to be awesome. Again, I'm deciding if I want to do a third dish, like a full-on entree. I'm definitely going to do a dessert as well. And before we get going, go ahead, subscribe right now. Meow.
Hurry up, meow.
Don't forget, and if you end up enjoying this, don't forget to hit the like button. And also, let me know what kinds of foods you want to see in the future. And all right, enough blabbing. Let us get cooking. Alrighty, meow, let's get rolling with the first of our apple dishes. And we're going to start off with the soup base.
As you know, I'm all about that bass,
So to do that, we're going to take the skin off an onion, cut it into nice thin slices. You don't have to be exact about this because it will eventually go into a blender. Similarly, we're going to take the top off a head of fennel and we're going to pick off those nice little fennel leaves and put them into a container and set them aside. Just so then that way later on when we go to plate up the soup, we can forget that we did that and put parsley on instead.
Idiot.
Cut the fennel in half so then that way we have 2 nice even pieces, and that is going to expose the core. We're going to cut kind of a triangle out of the core as to remove most of it, and then we're going to cut thin slices into it. In this case, if you leave a little bit of the core in there, or if it's a little imperfect, again, not a big deal because it will all eventually be blended. I'm cutting away any little bit that's also green, and that's because I really want the soup base to be nice and white.
You're saying it weird. Why are you putting so much emphasis on the H?
What are you talking about? I'm just saying it. Cool Whip. You put Cool Whip on pie. Pie tastes better with Cool Whip.
Say whip.
Whip.
Now say Cool Whip.
Cool Whip.
Alright, once all that's cut up, we're going to set that aside, and now it is time to peel and cut our apples. So you notice that I'm peeling around the top and the bottom and then making one nice swift motion as to cut the entire length of the side. If you are cutting a very, very large amount of apples, what I would say is between each apple is you should put it into a container of water with just a little bit of lemon juice or acid of some kind. And what that will do is it will prevent the apples from turning brown as you're working with all of them. Now, I'm only peeling 3 and it's a relatively quick process, so honestly don't really need to go over the top with that. Once the apples are all peeled, I'm going to now move into cutting them, and I'm going to just cut around the core, all 4 sides, and that way I have 2 bigger pieces, 2 smaller pieces. Then I'm going to cut all those pieces of the apples into smaller rough hunks, again not being too precise about this. Then I'm going to toss them with the onions and fennel, just a dash of olive oil, again to prevent them from browning as I move my filming stuff over, and I proceed to start cooking them. Once you move your tripod over to the stove and you are ready to film yourself cooking the soup, we are going to have a small pot over low heat, and then we're going to add just a tablespoon or 2 of butter into this, and then almost immediately before it even really starts melting, we're going to add our onions, fennel, and apple. If you're worried about overcrowding your pan, because normally what we're doing here would be bad, there'd be too much stuff in there for the relative surface area of pan at the bottom, don't worry about it for this one because we are intentionally trying to cook this stuff low and slow. Right now we're going to add a pinch of salt, and what that's going to do is that's going to draw out the moisture from the onions and fennel, and then that is going to slowly emulsify with the butter and olive oil as it melts. Then by cooking it in that nice emulsified sauce, we're going to have just an absolutely amazing product at the end. So I'm going to show you right now how to finish out the soup base, and then we're going to move on to the other things, but keep in mind, while this soup base is cooking, you can be off doing the other prep items that I'm going to show you in just a minute. Once those onions and fennel are nice and super soft, but again have not developed color, I'm going to add just a couple cups of water, maybe a few tablespoons of almond milk just to really solidify that color. You could also use cream or white wine or veggie stock. All of these are good options. So then we're going to let that cook for about another 5 minutes, and then it is time to blend it. And before you go on chill down the soup, make sure that you season it properly with salt, pepper, and in this case, just a little bit of chili flake. Now, what I'm aiming for in this soup is that you want the warmth of the soup to be there, and then you don't want the chili flake to be spicy, but almost to hold that warmth in your mouth.
Oh my.
Alright, and next up we are making parsley oil, although honestly you can use this technique with whatever herb you want. So we're going to cut the stems off the parsley and we're going to chop some up, and really this parsley was meant to be used for another dish. I'm doing this series with apples, but yeah, I ended up using it on this soup. Anyway, after we run our knife through the parsley and we have it nicely cut up, we're going to put it into a container and set that aside. And all of the offcuts and stems, we're going to take that and put it into a blender with a cup and a half of olive oil, and we're going to put that on the blender and just let it go, and it's gonna blend and blend and blend.
One eternity later.
And you almost want to see the color go just a little bit dull. If you don't let it go for long enough, you won't truly infuse it enough, and actually the oil will actually eventually turn a brown color later on. Whereas if you let it go just a little bit dull right now, after we strain it in just a minute, it'll actually retain that bright green color for a very long time. We are going to take that and strain it through a strainer that is lined with multiple layers of paper towels. And once that's all cooled off, we have this beautiful olive oil that has a nice herby flavor to it. And like I said, I did this with parsley, but you can do this with whatever you want. And heck, you can even throw in other aromatics like ginger or garlic and have a wonderfully flavored oil. And with those two things, our prep is done. You can set everything aside. We have everything that we need to plate this up. When you are ready to plate this up, we're just going to warm up our soup. Now, I don't have video of this, but just put it on a small pot, put it on the stove, put that into a bowl, and then we are going to cut a small dice on apple. Now, the reason why we are not doing this ahead of time is because apple will turn brown unless you soak it in water, and with how small we're cutting this, I would be afraid if it's soaked in water for an extended period of time that it would kind of become waterlogged. So this is one of the few places that you will actually see me use a knife when I'm doing service or plating up a dish. Top it off with a little bit of your herb. Again, I have parsley here, but also don't be afraid to use them fennel fronds, and put that beautiful green oil over the top. And finally, it is not finally, because this was super quick and easy, it is time to enjoy. Let's eat it. It's creamy, it's rich, which is kind of weird because there's only like the tablespoon of butters and like 2 tablespoons of almond milk, but the fresh apple gives it such a nice tart counterbalance, and the parsley and parsley oil also just really work to give it a little bit of freshness. This is just, not to like toot my own horn, but this is a really yummy appetizer. It looks really pretty in the bowl. Give it a shot. Let me know how it turns out.